The camera's history can be traced back to the ancient Chinese and Greek times, where they used a primitive camera called the obscura. Essentially, an enclosed box with a small hole in one end that allows light in and reflects it off a mirror onto a viewing opening. This meant that the subject would have to stay impossibly still for an exhausting amount of time, and if the photographer wasn't good at tracing, then it would be rather an annoying waste of time. In 1816, Mr. Niepce came to the rescue. He created the first ever film by soaking sheets of paper in a silver chloride solution. When silver chloride is exposed to light, it changes to a greyish-blue colour. This is because it decomposes into metallic silver and atomic chlorine. He placed his film in an obscura and left it on a windowsill for 8 hours. This created the first ever photograph. Everybody was very excited about this new technology. Unfortunately, the light needed to look at the image also made it fade away as the chemicals continued to react. This of course was the case until Louis Daguerre. Yep, Daguerre used a copper plate for the base of his film and covered it with the chemical silver halide, as it did the same job as the other silver-based chemicals, but when it came into contact with mercury vapor, any part of the image that had been exposed to light would stop reacting, locking it in its current shade. The salt was to reduce the amount of excess chemicals that had not been affected by the light. Through many developments, the film became faster to expose, so fast in fact that they had to develop the shutter to limit the amount of light that came in. They also added lenses to keep the cameras focused and to perform various tasks. We can see the aperture partially closed within the lens. Taking the lens off, we can see the mirror of the camera. If you carefully lift the mirror of any old film camera or DSLR, you'll find the shutter hiding at the very back of the camera, and we'll be able to observe the shutter shoot up and down. Today there are many different types of camera shutters. Some don't even have one. If you open up a digital camera, you shouldn't be surprised if they don't have a shutter. Many digital cameras simply turn their sensor on and off. In slow motion, we can see the mirror lift up just a fraction of a second before the picture is taken. Adjusting the lens helps us to control focus, zoom, and the field of view. We should all know from our science class that flat lenses do not affect the angle in which light travels. If that were the case, the lenses on a camera would be almost pointless. Instead of getting a wide shot of your subject, you only get pictures that are focused in and zoomed on one particular point. Curved lenses bend the light, and by having several of them lined up in a row makes it possible for us to get a much wider shot of the subject. We can do that because we focus the light that is not coming directly into the lens and bend it so that they land on the film or sensor, meaning we can zoom in or out and achieve a wider shot. We can also change zoom and focus. All we have to do is change the distance between the lenses. Focus works the same as light going in, but in reverse. The light coming out of the lens must be focused on the sensor correctly, or the image will be blurry. That is why if you look at something that is close to you, the background will seem out of focus, because the light is coming in at a different angle to what the lens has adjusted for the angle of the object that is close to you. The aperture is pretty obvious. It controls the amount of light that goes into the camera. The smaller hole lets less light in for a darker image, while it becomes bigger to let more light in for a lighter image, depending on the situation. The same way that our eyes work. The viewfinder is a major part of the camera. It's what we use to be able to see the image and adjust to the way we like it when we push the shutter. Originally, they were a separate lens on top of the camera, but this was not very accurate, so they incorporated a design that was very similar to the obscura. The light, instead of going straight to the closed shutter, hits a mirror and sends light to the top of the camera, where there is a prism which flips the image so that we can see it the correct way up. Alternatively, digital works in the same way, but instead of a chemical reaction occurring on a film, a sensor reads the light and relays that to a computer that interprets that into code. That code can then be used to recreate the image later on. Color film works off the same principle as black and white film, the difference being that color film has 3 layers of emulsion, not just one. This means that there are 3 separate layers that each react to a different color. But what stops the light from going through each layer? Well, the 3 layers absorb blue, green, and red light. This is because each of these layers contain colored crystals, which is the opposite color to the light they are collecting. This means that other colors can simply pass through that layer, while the corresponding color neutralizes the crystals in that area. When all 3 layers are processed and seen together, it produces a perfect negative image of the photograph, meaning that all the colors are the opposite of the way they should be.